Okay, we'll get rolling on this.
Okay.
Well, I guess what first thing I wanted to ask was how you went. You'd mentioned that you were met Keltner back in Oklahoma, and you guys were both he was with Delaney and Bonnie, kind of bar bands.
Yeah.
How'd you get from being a drummer in an Oklahoman bar band to now being producer of Grammy award-winning albums and and all that? Big jump, but
yeah. Well, it was a continuous trip. The first thing that happened to me, I was in the same band from the time I was 14, or just right about at my 15th birthday, up until all the time during when I met Keltner, which I was in 1964. I started with a group that eventually became the Third Avenue Blues Band, which was a real good band. Started out of clubs in Oklahoma City, and when I started touring, as soon as I got out of high school in 1967, I stayed with that band up until 11 years ago. So I guess it would be 71. I mean, I stuck it out. So that was like 7 years.
Wow.
With the same group of guys, and we had one album out on Universal or Uni Records, which is MCA.
Right. Remember them?
Which I don't have. Yeah, I don't have the record. I don't even care to. But the band was real good. It was a real tight band. So when I met Jim, he heard that band and he really liked it a lot. But it was the kind of band that wasn't commercial. It was really, it played blues shuffles. It was kind of a cross between Jack McDuff and B.B. King.
Right.
It was unusual band with organ bass and two horns and black singer, and it wasn't necessarily geared toward the popular music of the time, though we thought we were. And when I had finally just reached the end of my rope with that, I left that in 71 and moved to Nashville and joined a band called Barefoot Jerry.
Yeah.
And it was there that just, my life really just plummeted totally downhill. I've been into drugs very heavily. And my wife was sick and everything seemed wrong, and I was so miserable, and that brought about what the change was in my life, which was actually accepting Jesus in my life. I went outside and prayed one day, and I said, Lord, if you can give me some peace, I'd do anything. And I heard something back, spoke to me so loud, it literally scared me. It said, I want you to leave here and go back to Oklahoma, and I have a plan for you. The first thing I did was I ran back inside with this band and smoked a joint and tried to forget it.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't want any part of it. The next day, the band decided to go a different direction. The guitar player was leaving that I liked, and they didn't know if they were going to stay together. And I said, I think I'll go back to Oklahoma. It seemed easy to do.
Yeah.
And I did. And I didn't know what was going to happen there. I went back and I ran into the guitar player that had been with me in the blues band. He was working in a mission on the streets with winos, playing guitar in it. I went to that and I started working in this little church in a mission. I just said I'd quit playing music and I'm just going to try to get my life in order. And we got our organ player that had been in the band and led him to Jesus. About 2 weeks later, Harlan, who had been in mental hospitals, and he had a miraculous, just mental recovery. And then got the trumpet player, Fletch, who had been heavy into drugs, and we prayed for him, and he had no withdrawal, so we said, this stuff was very real. So I started doing that, and I remember during the time I was really tempted to join Bill Chase's band. He offered me a good job, and it was a lot of money, but I just decided to stay and work in the mission. And from there I met Andrae, and he was the only guy at that time who was out actually making a living doing Christian music. And we were the first musicians who were Christians that he had met that were professional. I mean, really professional musicians who could play. It shocked him, and so he started trying to hire us immediately. Finally, in June of '72, I went to work with Andrae, and from there, a year after that, he had another guy producing his albums, and he was starting to sell, do well. And he said, I don't want to have this guy produce my albums. I want to produce my own albums because I don't like the way they sound. And he asked me if I would hire musicians for him because I had, from my previous time, known guys like Dean Parks and Joe Sample and different people, if I would hire the band for him for his sessions to get better players. So I started by doing that. And then we hired a band. He liked the tracks that we were doing. And it came time for him to sing his songs. He would say, you coming down to the studio? And I was sitting there, and I'd tell him if it sounded good to me or not, if it was in tune or what was happening. When I got ready to mix, he said, we're mixing the album, you got to come in to mix. And I said, wait a minute, you're producing this. And he said, no, you've been producing this more than me. We're co-producing this.
Right.
I'll split the deal with you. You're a co-producer. And I didn't know essentially what a producer was. but I guess it's what we were doing. You know?
Which I was doing.
And so we finished that album. It was called Take Me Back. It was the first album I worked on as producer, and it won a Grammy for me.
Wow.
And so, which was his first one. So immediately people thought I was a producer.
Right.
And that's where that started.
That's great, huh? Wow.
Yeah, it was like kind of walking into it. And I liked it because I'd always felt very limited as a drummer, being able to express the whole scope musically. When I play drums, I don't think drums as much as I do the whole band. You know, I'm thinking, the top end with my cymbals, or I'm thinking where the pulse is and what the bass is doing with my foot, and I'm very aware of all of the vocal things and the moods and the key. And doing drums, you can't get as fulfilled, but when you're producing or when you're in charge, you really have a say in everything that goes, every aspect of the music, including the way it's put on tape. And that was very interesting. It was just like a broadening of what I was doing with playing drums.
So was this album done in Oklahoma?
No, I moved to California when I joined Andrae. Andrae he grew up in L.A.
So how long did you do that mission?
9 months.
9 months. And was that working on the street with the...
Yeah, we would go out and talk to winos, and if people didn't have a place to live, we would take them in and feed them and help them and pray with the guys and try to give them clothes. And we were actually trying to do what the Bible said when Jesus said, give to the poor and take care. We weren't going to play like we were in a church. We were trying to just do that example. It was miraculous because you're really involved in the helping of people. For example, one guy in our home group, an ex-drummer, nightclub drummer, came home and found a guy robbing his house. So instead of calling the police, they got the guy and said, you shouldn't be doing this, and you need help in your life. They prayed with the guy, and the guy was so touched, and they moved him in, and he lived with them for like 2 months. Is
that true?
Yeah, it's true. We went about things a little different way, than the standard church would be. And the church, in a lot of ways, it would just organize what the Lord said out of it, and it's what's to turn off. What the Lord says is a very powerful, vibrant thing, and the church wasn't. It was very boring, and I hated to go to church. It was the most boring thing, but this mission was happening. I mean, you're seeing junkies coming off the streets and get prayed for, and they don't want smack.
Is that right?
Yeah, and that's, that's supposedly not possible, but we would see that.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed it.
Did you have the background as a kid? Was it like in church all the time? Nothing.
Yeah. I was as far from it. The only thing I know is that this big old drummer I knew, 300-pound drummer, walked in the club we were playing at one time, and right on the start of the break, he walked up and handed a Bible to everybody in the band. He said, I claim everybody up here for the Lord Jesus. And I kept thinking about that, and I still had a Bible.
Is that right?
Yeah, and that was the first thing. It seemed like when things would get hard, I would see Billy Graham or something, and I would think, this guy's crazy, but yet something's wrong, when I'd be on an acid trip or something.
Yeah.
I fought it. It came my way. I didn't search it out. I really didn't. It was not available to me.
I know the feeling.
I didn't want anything to do with it, actually. I did not want my life to change until I got it so boxed in.
Yeah, that's a funny story, though. Just give me an answer. Hearing a voice, hey, could you send a letter or something?
I mean, I don't know if anybody else could have heard it, but it was so loud to me. It was louder than another person's voice, and it really, literally scared me. And also, when I don't want to get into thing in print about these guys, but when I got ready to leave Nashville, these guys tried to give me a pound of dope as a present.
I bet. Yeah, I was going to ask you that if you got a lot of flack.
And I just wanted it so bad. I'd never turned any down since the time I started. Never.
Yeah.
And I said, no, I don't think so. And I got in a car, and I wanted to get high so bad. I said, why did I leave that dope back there?
Yeah.
I found this little Good News for Modern Man Bible. I didn't even know what it was,
Right.
Every time I felt like getting high, I would read, and I started getting higher reading than I was smoking the joint.
Yeah.
And I just kept doing that, and by the time I got to Oklahoma, I didn't want any. And it's been that way, for 11 years. So that was, it was a miracle, a literal miracle with me, because I was snorting coke and taking acid and snorting heroin. I was starting to go the whole way of just a regular musician.
Run the gamut.
And it really got turned around.
Yeah. That's amazing, man. Did you had mentioned something? I just lost my train of thought on that. One thing before we were talking about. A lot of times I get example. A friend of mine came up, and B.J. Thomas was at a concert, and I guess the concert was billed as a Christian concert, and he came in, and the majority of the material that he did was
his old hits.
His old hits, and he got a lot of flack from that. And I just wondered, in the Christian music scene, is there a lot of pressure not to do secular music, or is there a line between what is secular music and what isn't?
I don't think that there's a lot of pressure. It's all in hell. I think that people are very, very supportive of somebody like Denise Williams, who still does her music. I think what the problem is with an instance like BJ is that you can go see BJ at a small club doing his old hits. The only audience that he would draw 3, 4, 5, 10,000 people in was a Christian audience. And when he went before that audience, expecting to hear what, I don't know any exact figures, but I know BJ had one album out on Myrrh Records or Word Records that sold around 350,000 copies. I don't think he's had any pop albums do that much ever, and if they did, it hadn't been in 8, 9 years.
Yeah.
So those are the people who were supporting him.
Right.
And when he went to a concert with them, they didn't really want to hear him sing "Hooked on a Feeling" or "Raindrops" or something.
Right.
And so that was the flack right there. Is that they felt
Have you heard about that?
Oh, I just did 4 concerts with him. Are you kidding?
Were you there?
Just the last 4. There's a lot of heavy stuff just went down.
Yeah.
And I understand BJ's kind of boxed himself into a corner because I won't do it, and yet the way I feel about it is don't accept the concerts. That's fine. If BJ just wants to do his other music, that's fine. What concerns me about BJ is his own life, not his music.
Right.
That's not an issue with me. The music isn't, and I think that most people are supportive over a lifestyle. They should be anyway. Where there is resentment is like if a person has never been anything but a Christian musician. And there's not many examples of that, but there were in the black church, like Aretha Franklin.
Right.
And like Andrae. And if Andrae went a pop record out, he would automatically lose everything he had. Because they feel he would be deserting what he had. But if a pop artist becomes a Christian, I don't think they expect them to desert it. I can understand and not understand that. As for Andrae, I don't think he should be doing anything else, because I think that he's so gifted at what he does, that's what he does.
Yeah.
But other people maybe not.
Yeah. But musically, I mean, his music is as accessible as any pop music.
Oh yeah, he's a great musician. I mean, you get people like Quincy Jones and Stevie, and they all just say this guy's one of the greatest musicians we know. I mean, you could ask any of the great musicians of our time. You could talk to Joe Sample. He'll play for Andrae anywhere, anytime. They know.
Is that right?
Oh yeah, they know. I mean, he's a great musician, so he doesn't have anything to hide. As far as musically, he never has held back there. He's felt like music in itself is a pure art form. It's what you say with it. What your words are saying that pollutes it or brings life to it, and that's what you're singing about. And so, and I agree with that 100%. I don't feel any boundary as far as style. Some little church person could say heavy rock guitars are the devil, and somebody else would say pipe organ is terrible. I don't feel anything. I love music if it's done well. Yeah.
I feel like the guy, who are those guys? Two brothers or something that Vernon Records, and I forget the name of those guys.
I don't know, but I'm not into that stuff. It's just publicity, and it has nothing to do with being an example, a good example to anybody.
Yeah. Yeah, I have trouble picturing the apostles walking around burning.
I mean, they were too busy trying to help people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the whole, you get everything mixed up. Instead of pointing fault at everyone and telling everyone how bad they are.
Yeah.
If you looked at the way the Lord walked, he walked around healing people and helping people. That's what the church is supposed to be, is a light.
Right.
Example of love. Not an example of criticizing and paranoia and fear and all the stuff I read in the paper, the way that, I don't like, the way that the organized church handles things.
Yeah, I agree with you. So I grew up, was raised Catholic, and it was...
It's a whole other world,
Yeah.
It's very uncomfortable.
Extremely uncomfortable, So, do you think we were kicking around that another thing, too, about there seems to be this myth with playing music, and maybe even more so among certain factions of Christians, where if you're a successful guy or you're comfortable money-wise, or maybe even affluent, there's something wrong with that, that it's a lot better to be broke. And you hear that?
There's, as with anything, there's opposite sides of the coin. There's one side that thinks unless you're prosperous, you're not in God's will, because as the Lord said,
Calvinism.
I would prosper you and keep you in health. There's another side that thinks unless you give everything away and live like it. I think that if you learn anything about the scriptures at all. It's how your heart is. And I don't see. I think it's a wonderful thing to make money.
Yeah.
I think it's a terrible thing to love money and make that. I think it's a wonderful thing for me to make money so I can give.
Right.
I really like to give.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's great. People pay me well for what I do, and I appreciate it. I pay people well who work for me. So it rotates itself.
Right.
I don't see any evil in that in itself at all. I think that's fine. So if another person has another opinion, they'd have to show me. I think it's fine. I'm not a big, flamboyant guy, and say, hey, I made $1 million this year and then squandered to that. But I enjoy making money, providing for my family well, and doing things for enjoy, and I think that's good.
Okay. Did when you made the switch, when you started becoming involved in the Bible and becoming a stronger Christian, who counseled you? Where'd you get your input from?
I had two guys that had at the mission. One was used to be one of the best shuffle drummers I ever knew. He was a drummer for years with Jerry Fisher, the guy who sang Blood, Sweat, and Tears. They grew up together.
Really?
He quit playing and became a preacher. His name's Jimmy Hill, and his brother Bobby Hill, who was a dope dealer in town.
Right.
Both those guys had got their act cleaned up and had gone to Bible school, and they were running the mission. And I just sat in there with them and a couple of good preachers who came through town that got to know me and took interest, and I got listened to a lot of tapes, and I would go to local churches there, and I stayed in there. I mean, it was a radical change in lifestyle.
You quit playing drums at that point.
I never really quit. I was in the mission.
Yeah.
We would draw crowds in the mission because of the band we had was a big nightclub band, and so we were all playing in the mission.
With a nightclub.
And we had done recording for other people, so it was good musicians. It was not like anything you heard in church. It was I could play you an album. I don't know if it's still around, but we played some pretty. It's almost like Jimmy Smith kind of jazz.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
In a church, yeah. I can remember taking Willie Weeks in there and playing with us when he was traveling with Donny Hathaway.
Yeah.
I used to play with Willie before.
Yeah.
And, we came to church and jam. We would just do the same thing we did in our clubs. I mean, it was a lot looser.
That's amazing. People don't, man.
There's not many ways in the mission. There's not many places like that. I don't know many places like that. Well, we had the freedom that we had. We were, wild dog, ex-doper musicians with long hair, and that was the only place we could fit in.
Yeah. That's always interested me, how guys like yourself and Keltner is another example, guys that kind of went through the fire to get, and then out of it, and yet some guys never made it, some guys.
I don't know, you just got to pray for people and love people. And I don't even mean to sound judgmental on anyone, even though I feel in my heart that what I have is the truth. If someone doesn't have it, I still love them and respect them for what they do, and don't have any bad feeling towards them. There's a lot of Christians that they would say, why are you playing with this person? Why do you do that? Why would you work with Freddie Hubbard? Because I like Freddie Hubbard.
Right.
I love the way he plays. He's a beautiful musician,
yeah,
and he's a friend. And I feel, I don't feel anything about associating myself like that, as long as I'm a good example.
Right. Yeah. That's true. That's a real good point,
And, maybe we can be a little bit of help. I know Jim's been a help to some people. And
yeah.
And so if you do any little bit of good, it's worth it, because there's a lot of hurting people, especially a lot of hurting musicians. So they just really have rough lifestyles. I'll tell you another one who's really growing and doing great in the Lord is Chester Thompson.
Is that right?
Yeah, Chester is he was a really hurting person who now is a very happy person.
Yeah.
We're real close in our home group that we have.
Do you keep questioning? I mean, do you keep learning? That was the thing in my life that I meet guys who are maybe fundamentalist Bible students, and I always find myself keep questioning. Not to not be able to accept things about statements in the Bible, but just thinking, gee, there's so much here that I don't really understand.
I don't anymore. I was so dumb. If I really got into the thing heavy, I don't even know that I want you to print all this, but I was so dumb when I first became a Christian that I didn't know anything better but exactly believe what it said.
Right.
And when I saw it said, Jesus laid hands on them, they were sick. Well, first 2 or 3 days after I became a Christian, I had a guy who was sick. He had blood poisoning in the foot with a sore on his foot, with no scab on it, and we laid hands on his foot and prayed, and a scab formed before our eyes, and it shrunk down before our eyes. It's just a miracle of healing, and we just believed it. the funny thing is, I thought that was normal. I just saw it and I said, oh, because I didn't know anything about the Bible to begin with.
Yeah.
So I had so many things following in line with it being true when I read it, that as opposed to what someone would tell me about it. As I was studying, my questions, every major question I had was, what about the dinosaurs on the earth? And it traced back and almost every major question I ever had has been shown and answered to me to where I just said, I accept now. I just accept. I accept because maybe 10 or 11 years of feeling the results within my family life and with my wife and saved a marriage that I should have no way been saved.
Really? Yeah.
You know, with all that, I just kind of stopped questioning.
Yeah. That's probably why it worked.
Yeah.
Because you had the faith and the belief, you know.
Yeah. I needed help. I really needed help. I don't know that I've been alive, you know, at this point because I was one of those guys. I was a wild man.
Yeah. Yeah.
I almost moved up here with the Brecker Brothers, the band Dreams. It was right at the same time I was offered a job here.
But after Billy left, or before Cobb?
Yeah, right when he left. It was when they just had the album, the second album, I guess, one with the artwork cover.
Yeah.
It was just coming out, and I came up. Randy had me falling out here from where I was, somewhere on the road. And I was really going to do it, but they didn't have any work, and that was that whole time with my decisions of what I was going to do. And if I would have come here, I would have gone the whole route.
Yeah.
You know?
Did you set out wanting to be a studio drummer when you started playing?
I like playing music. I really, you know, I wanted to play with good people. I was all I ever did. I would get called in. I would do records. But it wasn't my favorite thing because there was no audience, and I like making mistakes, and you can't make mistakes on records. You know, I like to go for things.
Right.
And I didn't expect. I wanted to play live with somebody like Miles Davis, or you know, do things like that. That's what I wanted.
That'd be too shabby, you know.
That was what I wanted to do.
So, are you self-taught, pretty much?
Yeah, yes and no. I had an unusual background a bit. My mother was a jazz piano player who died when I was 2 months old, and she was pretty good. I heard some tapes or records that she'd done afterwards, and so I had shown some kind of musical ability, I guess, as a little baby. My grandparents raised me, took me when I was a baby, so I started going to music school when I was 2. And it was like a little children's musical, and I played the keyboards and stuff in it, and played. And I had a little toy drum set. Then I got me a violin, and I played that when I was about 3, and then I played, you know, not well, I just played them all the time.
Yeah.
I had a trombone, and I played that, and then I started taking piano lessons when I was about 9, and learned how to read for doing that.
Yeah.
And when I was 12, I remember going to summer band, and they had a little thing called summer school band, in between the 6th and the 7th grade, whatever it is, to prepare you so you don't have to start in the beginning band. Right. It was like a beginning band. And the band director said, what do you want to play? And I was trying to think in my mind, you know, what do I want to play in this? Because I like, you know, I think I'll play drums. And he said, oh, no. So now you knew your mother. She was a great piano player, you know. And for you to be a drummer, you know, why don't you play a good instrument like clarinet or something, you know? And that really made me matter. No, I want to play drums, you know. That's what I want to do. And it came so easy. I mean, literally, within 6 months, I had a drum set and I was working. I was playing dances. It was so fast.
How old were you now?
12.
You were playing dances at 12?
Yeah.
No kidding.
13, yeah. I started when I was 13. I started working with a guy. I don't know if you ever knew him. His name's Jesse Ed Davis.
Sure. Taj Mahal's band and all that.
Yeah. Well, that was before that. I started playing in his band when I was 12 and a half or 13, and he was about 20. He was in college, so I started working with all the older guys real fast. Because maybe there wasn't that many good drummers, and I was young, and I could, you know, keep a beat, and I liked a lot of different music, and playing drums was just easy. But I took a few private lessons. There was one guy who gave me a couple named Tom Gager, I think, who's with Boston Symphony now. He helped me a little bit. And then another teacher named Eddie Lockhart and Johnny Johnson. All this over about a year. And then I quit taking because I got to the point I could read from playing piano.
Right.
And the books are starting to seem easy, and it was getting to where it was real easy for me to do things creatively on the drums, think of just funny things, and the teachers were not that way, and they were like, listen to that. They were saying, oh, how do you do that? And I started feeling like I wasn't getting as much out of it, so I had enough groundwork.
Yeah.
You know, the only thing I wish I would have done was learned how to play with a totally matched grip right from the start.
Is that right?
Yeah, so I could play with my left hand over here.
Yeah.
You know, I started like that, and now I've switched. You know? But if I didn't have any, just a little stick guidance.
You playing that now? Sometimes your left hand on a hi-hat?
I do some, but it's still more right. But I play match grip because there's so much more power,
Yeah.
going down like that than there is, for popping a backbeat right in the center. You just can't do it it just doesn't go as well. But that about did it. My training was when I was 14 or so. That's when I started 6 nights a week in the nightclubs, and I never quit.
Mm-hmm.
I did it all the way through high school, nonstop. I went to high school and was out playing in the clubs at night, or playing the local proms, or playing on the TV shows and stuff they had in the local area. I just, and it didn't stop. I still haven't quit. It's been nonstop playing for, almost 18 years, I guess, 19 years.
Straight through, right through.
Yeah.
Wow. No, never had to do day gigs or anything?
I've never worked in my life. Except when I was about 10 or something, I threw papers for a year or two, and I saved that money, and that's what I bought my first drum set with.
Yeah.
And after that, it never worked.
So how old? You must have been pretty young when you got married then.
Oh, 18 years old. My daughter's 13.
Wow.
She was born when I was 19.
You're, 33?
Yeah.
33.
So, it's been non-stop music ever since.
Yeah.
Except for that, even the period in the church was music. That's what we did in there.
Yeah.
In the mission, I was still playing. We were having church service 6 nights a week, for the bums on the streets. So we played every night,
They probably missed you when you left,
Oh, yeah. It was great. I loved it.
Have you been back? Is it still there?
No, it's not there anymore. Someone else took it over. It was sad. The one guy who was running it got murdered. He was over trying to share with some guys over, and it had an old dope deal, something, and they pulled out a gun and killed him. That was after I moved.
One of the Hall Hill?
Yeah, one of the Hill brothers.
Really?
Yeah, Bobby Hill was murdered. It was really, sad for all of us.
Yeah.
But he was a great guy, and his motive was right why he went over. So that's one thing nice about having lawyers. I don't necessarily think of this life as being all there is to do. So I'm not as devastated. Just like the major artists I produce, one of the major ones, Keith, who just got killed 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I'm not as devastated as I would have been before. I'm able to accept it and be happy, and yet miss them.
Yeah, knowing the guy's not just in the ground.
Yeah, I don't feel at all. I feel very much alive. And, so that helps.
Sure. Yeah.
You don't face that devastation.
Yeah, I agree with that.
As I did growing up. My father died when I was 9. My brother died. My grandparents died. I lost my entire family, and I can remember that devastation of
So it's
loss.
Your mom?
My father.
Brother?
Yeah, my brother and my grandparents who raised me.
Man. So you were the last one left?
I have one brother.
Yeah.
That's left. And so it, I've seen death from both sides. Mm-hmm. It's a lot easier now to handle.
Man, how'd you cope with that?
I don't know. I was pretty, the only thing I remember as a fear was...
Am I next or something?
Well, no, I was concerned that my grandparents would die before I got grown up, and where would I go?
Yeah.
I thought, I really didn't want to lose them. It created a lot of good points in my personality, if you put it out. One, it makes you tough. It made me survive. Mm-hmm. And it made me always know that I can make a living. I felt since the time I was 16, you could put me any place in the world, anywhere without anything, and I can survive. Mm-hmm. I can work. I have something I can do, and I learned how to take care of myself, support a family, and but the one thing psychologically it did is it made me afraid to lose things. Right. But that turns itself around to a good point in the fact that when I'm doing something because I don't want to lose it, I try that much harder to do a good job. Mm-hmm. If I'm playing in a band, I try that much harder. If anything I do, I want to give it all because I want to keep it. I don't want to lose anything I'm contributing to, and it's caused me not to because it matters to me. Right. Some people would think, oh, this doesn't matter, I'll do this. Everything I do matters to me.
Is that right?
Yeah, everything I do. When I do it, it can be a little dumb, low-budget album for some kids from Texas who save enough money to come to L.A. and do it. Mm-hmm. And that matters to me. I want to do the best job so that when they come back to town, they want me to work with them again. Mm-hmm. Or it can be working with Joe Sample. Mm-hmm. It's the same, feel whatever it is, that's there.
Same energy.
Yeah.
So you'll do that? You work with guys like that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Sure. Sure. If they want me and they can afford what the process of coming to, we'll do anything we can.
Yeah.
I don't have as much time now to do that as I used to.
Yeah.
The biggest strain on my life has been the fact that now that I've produced, I've produced from 4 to 6 albums a year. just that I get so many tapes of people wanting me to produce them, and everyone's thinking I can get them a record deal because I may work for Warner's or this or that. And that is the biggest strain, is I just don't even want to think about it. You know, I don't even want to listen to all the tapes, and I don't want to try to negotiate. I just want to, work. I don't like that. Like being an agent or something.
Yeah. Man, you want some more coffee here?
Yeah.
You want it? Yeah, we'll hit you. This is good. I got this quote from, J.D. Salinger, Catcher in the Rye, the guy wrote.
Yeah, sure.
He wrote this was in another book, and it seemed to me not only to be the way a lot of people see drummers, professional musicians, but almost kind of a thing that, here, you can read it. I won't read it to you. I don't know what it is on the tape.
Okay. It's the part you have green.
Yeah. That's almost the way kids try to use that kind of a thing as a role model, the drummers. And since you're, maybe you comment on that, or since you maybe you've been like that, right?
It sounds like this guy knew me.
Yeah, right? Isn't that a great quote?
Oh, it really is. It's, and right here it says, a reputation for producing great or fine art and have something garishly wrong within this person. That sounds like me.
I know.
A romantic affliction or addiction, self-centeredness, marital infidelity, stone deafness, stone blindness, terrible thirst, soft spot for prostitutes, partiality for grand-scale adultery.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I said, man.
That's really true.
Yeah.
That's really true. I tell you, because everybody has their own opinions of it, but I think it's that in order to produce something that is original or art, you really dig deep inside yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And you can come up with some beautiful art that way, but when you dig deep inside yourself, the further you deep, the more alone you find you are.
Yeah.
And what comes out of that is a lot of just escapism.
Mm-hmm.
The reason I like to get high all the time wasn't for any other reason. The fact it made me feel better than the way I was feeling.
Mm-hmm.
It was an improvement over the way things were.
Yeah. God. Did you ever find naturally you had to develop different habits, just more positive habits, if you will, And you ever, my frustration I find a lot of times is knowing how to act. When you say like Jesus is a role model or something, you get things, and then every once in a while you'd be going along and things are great, and then all of a sudden
you blow it.
And it's like, no, I'll never get this right,
Yeah, well, you can feel bad, but, Bible, God gave me a good example one time. He says everyone's got it backwards. So when they do something wrong, first thing I want to do is feel guilty and run away from God. When actually, that's what Jesus came and he said, if you sin, go to God, and he'll forgive you of it. But when you do something wrong, that's the time you need him the most. That's when you got to go back before him. You don't go back before him and this terrible guilt. It's like, hell, when you keep genuinely trying, and I feel a lot better than turning my back. Hey, I blow it. I really blow it. I've blown it a lot. I'm thankful for the fact that I keep on growing, though. Yeah. I keep trying.
I guess if you learn from it and just, don't keep trying to do the same thing, realizing it's a mistake. But saying, heck with it, I'm just going anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's different attitudes about it. I think maybe a difference with me and somebody else is, to me, I recognize it when I blow it.
Yeah.
Very clearly. So it makes me, I was a very undisciplined person, always. And I kind of like having somebody else being my boss that's as trustworthy as God is.
Yeah. That's a good way of looking at it. Yeah. That's interesting.
It just kind of takes the pressure off of me.
Yeah. Huh. That's a neat, I like that. I'm going to have to use that, Are you working now with kids, students at all? Do you do any of that mess?
I burned myself out. I became a drum teacher when I was, 15 or 16. I taught at Larson Music Company in Oklahoma, all the way through high school. And it was so much for me playing 6 nights a week, going to high school and teaching drums in the afternoons, after school, up till time for the clubs, and teaching all day Saturday. And 98% of the kids that I taught were kids who just came out the street and said, I want to learn how to play drums, Daddy. And they said, well, we got 2 teachers that work here, pick one.
Yeah.
And they weren't ever aspiring. And if they didn't work as hard as I worked very hard. It came easy to me, but when I first started playing drums, I loved it so much, that's all I did. I'd get up
8 hours a day?
Hey, before I went to school, I'd play for an hour and a half. I came home from school, I played till I went to bed. That's why I was playing in 6 months or whatever. I put in the hours that people would put in 4 years right away, because it was fun.
What'd you practice with? Just anything?
I'd turn up the stereo, And I had, I remember there was different records I liked. I had a Art Blakey record that I really liked, and I had Elvis Presley records, and I had Brenda Lee records, and then I'd have, what's that guy? It's Andrae Crouch. Weird type of an assortment, but I just like playing with them all. Symphonic records, and I practiced by myself, and I like Freddie King instrumentals.
Yeah.
You know, so I started just playing with the music. I had a stereo in my room, and I crank it up, and I do that, and then I work on my hands. So I try to do something I couldn't do it, and I figure out why I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And I keep doing it till I could. You know.
So are you still doing that now? Practicing drums that way?
I'm not. I should.
Yeah.
I'm playing so much. You know, when I do full dance sessions, I put in 9-10 hours of playing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's gotten to, you know, like you probably know from being a player, that you run through different stages of working out your I don't know what you call
plateaus.
it. Yeah, I guess your coordination to where you can do different things.
Right.
I'm at a stage that it's not very hard for me to work out anything.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I can do it sitting here.
Right.
As much, you know.
Thinking about it.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it, moving my hand. If it's something between a hand and foot, I can usually get it going.
Yeah.
And I'm doing enough sessions that keeps my reading at a level where at least I'm comfortable with it.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing that I would really like to practice is being able to do more things with less effort.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I can do things, but sometimes I really have to bear down on it to do it, and I would like for it to come easier, which that comes from being a little more dexterous. You know,
just doing it. Yeah.
But I would like to. I've got a little Gretsch set over at the house that Dean Parks has given me to use, and I like that, and I play on that every now and then.
Little 4-piece kit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I really find more fun playing my piano. I got a big grand piano I bought, and I like to sit in and play that. There's something about that I can.
Can you play it?
I find.
I mean, do you like compose on the piano, or do you?
I have composed a few things.
Yeah.
But only one of them has been out in the past couple of years. That's been recorded. But I can find my way around. I used to play classical piano when I was a little kid. I can still read. So
yeah.
I like to sit and try to find voicings of chords, and then you can do the rhythms with the pianos like you can with drums.
Right.
Being a drummer helps your piano. So that's if I got the two sitting side by side, I'll play drums for just a few minutes, and it gets boring because there's no bass player. You know.
Yeah.
I can play piano. I can play bass line or something.
Yeah.
So.
And you got a lot more. It's like having 88 drums, you know.
Yeah, so it's, you know, that's how it falls. Now, if I could have Abraham come over to my house every day, I'd play drums all day.
Yeah.
Fortunately, we get to do that enough, you know.
Do you keep losing my train of thought here, Bill?
That's because I ramble.
No, you're doing pretty good. When you mentioned starting out at 12, did you always have a pretty good time? Or did you have to work on your ability to keep? Well,
I thought I did, but I was the first band I was in, the very first one. I mean, I think I got in a band as soon as somebody heard I had a drum set, which was about a day later. This guitar player had really poor time, and I didn't know it because it was the first band I was in. We could only play about 4 songs, you know, and I was just wanting to play.
Yeah.
And so he would drop the beat, and I always turn the beat around to try to get with him, you know. And I thought, well, gosh, I guess that's what you have to do. Another guy came and played with us about a month later, and he could tell I was playing. I was nervous, waiting for him to do something, and he said, "No, that's not the way to do it. What you got to do is you just lay down the beat, and we play with you." And I said, "Is that all there is to it?" Boy, that makes it a lot easier.
Yeah.
You know, from then on, it was groove. You know.
Never had trouble with time.
I tell you when I really had my most trouble with it. Always when you play live a lot, you get a tendency to play on top.
Right.
The beat a little bit and rush. When I had my most trouble was in the first couple of years when I switched from not doing drugs
really
anymore. Yeah, because I was so used to playing in an intoxicated state, or wasn't an intoxication, but whenever it's like being on downers, smoking dope with it, that I felt the time in that way.
Right.
Well, when I didn't smoke dope anymore, I was more up, and it took me. You know, it took just a while to get it back together. I was used to play. I mean, there's some examples of some great drummers right now, and you can tell if they're not loaded, they don't play good.
Right.
Because they're used to being that way. Whatever way you're used to being in and feeling the time. But now I don't feel anything. You know, I can cut with click tracks all day long, and I like them. You know,
I don't work with them a lot.
Yeah, I don't care. You know, if you want them, fine. If you don't, fine. I don't care.
Yeah.
You know, I like them. I'll just play right around them and find the time. And I think that my tendencies now are to play with good time.
Mm-hmm.
The only problem is that once I got time thinking of it from that level, it made me real hard to enjoy a lot of music I used to enjoy because I would feel all the pulse things.
Mm.
It's real hard for me now to hear like a lot of these real fast guitar players and stuff, and then they'll hit a chord and they'll be not in the center of the groove, and it affects my heart. It's like someone out of, the timing is not. If you start defining your time and really getting your time feel down, you'll find how few people play with real good time.
Yeah, it's amazing how many guys that aren't drummers have guitar, lousy time, and they just.
And so, I can say it's taken away some of my appreciation, because if that's missing, I have a hard time enjoying the music now.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, it takes a bit, because all the time I'm feeling nervous. And I don't necessarily like that.
Can you play? Where do you play? You think naturally behind the beat, in the middle, or on top of the beat?
Depends on the song. If I'm playing Latin, I feel I play on top of the beat.
Yeah.
Because it gives it that lift. If I'm playing bebop, I'm playing on top of the beat.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm playing funk, general funk, I play pretty far back.
Right.
I try, like if it's R&B dance music like disco, that's in the center.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm just playing straight ahead funk, I play back. Something about I feel it back. That's does Keltner.
How did you? Kids ask about that all the time, like about time. Is that something that somebody can develop? You think the ability to, be listening to music and be thinking, geez, maybe I should be playing a little bit.
I guess it's a matter of listening and hearing it and feeling it. All music is a feeling, transcending the feelings and through instruments. And if I listen to a certain kind of music that moved me and the feeling of what behind it, and even tried to analyze it, then there's a certain way. So if I'm doing a session and someone says, play like this drummer or something, I have no idea how another drummer plays. I couldn't sit down and play like Tony Williams for you or Elvin, but maybe I could create the feeling of what they did just because of the feeling they gave me somewhere within that pulse of it back or whatever. There's something about the way they feel the time that I can relate to. And so then that feeling of it is, instead of the licks, the feeling of the music.
Right.
And I think if a person's in tune to that, then they'll understand that certain kinds of music just sits a certain way. It feels better if the word's being laid.
But if you were playing a funk thing, R&B, whatever, and somebody's engineer or producer said, Bill, could you play a little bit more towards the center? Could you do that?
Sure.
Yeah.
I try.
Yeah.
I think that way, okay. And he means he wants me to be up, so I'll really try to listen. And then if it wasn't what they want, I'd say, okay, give me a click track, and I'll hit it right exactly with it. Is that what you want? I'll try to get them what they want, however they want to do it.
Yeah.
But I need to make sure whoever I work with knows what they're talking about. I have that thing in me.
That helps. Yeah.
If they don't know what they're talking about, then I'm as confused as they are, and then I don't. I hate to get in the middle of confusion.
Okay. That makes. Yeah. I'm just trying to see if that will make sense to the